Good afternoon, everyone. I'm your teachers, Amiegail, Arceo, and Mr. Jericho, Ayap. And our topic for today is the National Competency-Based Teacher Standard. Okay, class. The National Competency-Based Teacher Standard is ito yung mga gabay para sa mga guro sa Pilipinas. It show them the essential skills they need to be a good teacher. So, tinitingnan nito ang mga bagay tulad ng kung paano sila lumikha ng isang magandang kapaligiran sa pag-aaral. So, understand device students, plan lesson, and collaboration with the community, and continue to grow as professionals. So, tinutulungan ito ang mga guro na maging mas mahusay sa kanilang mga trabaho at magbigay ng kalidad sa edukasyon ng pag-aaral. Why do we need the NCBTS? Yes, we need the NCBTS because it helps ensure that teachers have the right skill and knowledge to be really good at teaching. So, it outlines what makes a good teacher at tumutulong sa mga guro na mapanatili sa mga lugar na yun. So, tungkol ito sa pagtiyak na makukuha ng mga mag-aaral at pinakamahusay sa edukasyon na posible sa pamamagitan ng pagkakaroon ng mahusay na pamaghahanda at epektibong mga guro. So, sino-sino nga ba ang mga gumagamit ng NCBTS? The first is teachers' education. To train the future teachers, they use the framework to guide what they teach aspiring teachers, na tinutulungan silang matutunan ang mahalagang kasanayan na kailangan upang maging mahusay na mga tagapagturo. So, it shaped the curriculum and training programs in these situations to ensure that new teachers are well prepared for the classroom. So, the second is Professional Regulation Commission. So, set standard for teachers' licensing exams. So, they base the exam on the competency outlined in the National Competency-Based Teacher Standard Framework. So, nakakatulong ito na matiyak na ang magiging lisensyadong guro ay may mga kailangan, sanayin at kaalaman upang maging mahusay sa kanilang mga profession. And the next is Organization and Agency, Guideline for Teachers Evaluation and Professional Development. So, ginagamit nila ito upang masuri at suportahan ng mga guro sa pagpapabuti sa kanilang mga kasanayan at pamaraan sa pagtuturo. So, this help ensure that teachers provide quality education to students and continue grow in their professional. And the next is award-giving bodies. So, recognize and honor outstanding teachers. So, ginamit nila ang mga pamantayan ng balangkas upang masuri at matukoy ang mga tagapagturo. Nagpapakita rin ito ng mga natatanging kasanayan sa pagtuturo. So, this help highlight and celebrate the achievement of teachers who excel their professions. So, the next is of Teachers of Education. So, to set guidelines for teachers' development and evaluation. Ito ay nakakatulong din sa DepEd na matiyak na ang mga guro sa buong bansa ay may mga kinakailangan. So, kakailanganin ang kakayahan at katangian para makapagbigay ng kalidad sa edukasyon sa mga mag-aaral. So, individual teachers understand what skill they need to be effective in their classroom. So, ito ay tulad ng isang roadmap na tumutulong sa kanilang makita na kung paano ang ginagawa ng isang mahusay na guro at gumagabay sa kanilang pagpapabuti sa kanilang mga pamamaraan at kakayahan sa pagtuturo. Teachers can use it to self-assess, set goals, and develop themselves and professionally. Is the National Competency-Based Teacher Standards new, or how similar or different is it? So first is the National Competency-Based Teacher Standards from a wealth of accepting effective teaching practice that have been around for a while. So it's like gathering the best ingredients from different recipe to create a new dish. So here is, bagamat ang mga particular na item ay maaaring hindi bago, ang balangkas ay pinagsama-sama ng mga napagtuunang elemento na nagtuturo na ito ay isang komprehensibong gabay. And the second is the Philippines act like a master puzzle, gathering various proven teacher practice as individual pieces. So kapag pinagsama-sama ang mga pirasong ito ay bumubuo, nagka-create ng isang komprehensibong balangkas. So katulad ng pagkumpleto ng isang jigsaw puzzle. So this unified system offers a complete pictures, like serving as a guide for Filipino educators, helping them develop and professionally and excel in their teaching. The third is competency-based standards. Highlights and in the national competency-based teacher standards are relative new Filipino teachers and development. So dito is nakatuon ang mga diskarteng ito ay sa mga pagsusuri at pagpapabuti ng mga guro batay sa mga kanilang kanya-kanyang practical na kasanayan at kakayahan sa halip na pang-akademikong kaalaman. It emphasizes how well teachers can apply what they know in real classroom situations. So making teachers more effective and practical. So, how was the national competency-based teachers standard decided? So, meron tayo ditong the traditional view and the national competency-based teacher standard new. So, the first is teaching is a like step-by-step method, a technical process where the positive aspect there clearly outlined and understood. Though ito ay nasasangkot ng mga partikular na kasanayan, estrahiya at diskarte na mahusay na tumutukoy at kinikilala para sa mga kanilang pagiging epektibo sa pagtulong ng mag-aaral na nakakatulong sa pagtatagumpay. So, the National Competency-Based Teacher Standard New is teaching essential guiding and learning to happen. And sinusukat ito ng mga mabuting pagtuturo at nakasalalay sa kung paanong mag-aaral ang talagang nauunawaan ng tinuturo. So, effective teaching ensure that student engage, absorb, and learn from the lesson provided. Second, the traditional new, how teachers use their knowledge release on the necessary factor present in their teaching environment, the effectiveness of applying what they know gently depends on having the right condition, resources, and support available in their classroom or educational setting. So, the National Competency-Based Teacher Standards knew the good teaching succeed or fall within the voluntaries and chance presented by the learning environment. Ito ay yung umuunlad kapag may mga guro na umaangkop at nagsusulit ng mga kondisyon at nagpapakataong magagamit para sa mga mag-aaral para sa pag-aaral ng mag-aaral. So what if the teachers cannot do this type of teaching? So ito ay hindi lamang isang panukat para sa pagsusuri ng mga guro. So its main rule is roadmap. So guideline teachers to enhance their skill and become a better supporting and guideline student learning effectively. So it's more about it's it's more about improvement and growth that just as assessment. So how can NCBTS help teachers improve their teaching? So teachers differs in the kinds and degrees of motivation they have. Ang mga ilan-ilan ay maaaring hinihimok ng pagkahilig sa pagtuturo at ang habang iba naman ay maaaring makahanap ng pagganyak ng mga personal na layunin, pagtulong sa mga mag-aaral o professional na paglago. And the second is, ang bawat guro ay nagtataglay ng natatanging kakayahan at kasanayan. So, ang pagkakaiba-iba ng mga kakayahan na ito ay ang nagbibigay daan. So, teachers experience barriers and opportunity to follow their motivation. So, motivation and enhance their teaching skill regardless of their situation therein. Ang mga pagkakataong ito ay may maaaring magmula sa programa sa pag-unlad ng profession, suporta mula sa paaralan. So, mga professional na inistatiba o maging mga pag-aangkop sa mga partikular na pangyayari sa kanilang kapaligiran sa pagtuturo. So, domain. So, each domain in the teaching learning process represent a specific area where teachers demonstrate effective practice that possibility in fact student learning. So, isipin ang mga domain na ito bilang mga natatanging spare at tumutuon sa iba't ibang aspeto ng pagtuturo sa loob ng bawat domain. May mga stand na parang mas maliliit na kategorya na higit pang tumutukoy sa nagdedetalye sa mga prinsipyo ng perspektibong pagtuturo. So, nakaugma sa mga magandang resulta ng pagkatuto ng mag-aaral. Stands within the broad conceptual domain. There are specific dimension highlighting positives teachers practice. So this dimension outline and particular aspect or facet of effective teaching within that domain. So sa ibaba ng hierarchy na ito ay sa ilalim ng mga hibla na nakakahanap ng mga partikular na tagapagpahiwatig. Indicators, concrete, observable, and measurable teachers' behavior, action, habits, routine, and practice are specific and visible action that teachers takes in classroom. Ang pagkilos na ito ay kilala sa kanilang kakayahang bumubuo at tumutulong sa makihayat at pinakamabuting pag-aaral ng mag-aaral. The domain, strand, and indicators may be characterized in terms of the following dimensions. So the first is nature and quality. So ang dimension ito ay kung gaano kabisang pinapakita ng mga guro ang mahalagang aspeto o pangunahing katangian sa mga kanilang positibong kasanayan sa pagtuturo. So, frequency and consistently and appropriateness is this dimension evaluates how frequently the ideal teaching practice are show it. If they sit in the specific teacher's learning process and whether the teachers consistently demonstrate this ideal method. So in the self-awareness, this dimension, whether the teacher understood or understand and is conscious of the The principal reasons, natures, and impacts of the teaching and learning method they demonstrate.
As a teacher, the society expects a lot from us, and these expectations are manifested in the national competency based standards. Good day, my name is Jericho Ayap, and today I'll be tackling the lesson of the seven domains of NCBTS. So let's get right ahead. So, first, let's discuss the learning objectives. So, the first learning objective would be identify the seven domains of NCBTS. This would just mean the students are able to identify what the seven domains are. So the next one would be determine the relevance of NCBTS to the facilitation of learning. So this would just mean that how well does the NCBTS affect the learning of the students, right? How does the NCBTS help the teachers facilitate an effective learning for the students? So the third one now would be explain the indications of the strands of each domains. So as we know, or maybe you don't, I'm going to explain it right now, okay? There are seven domains, and these each domains have their own strands, and there are indication in each strands explaining what these strands are. So first would be the domain, second would be the strand, and third would be the indication. So let's get right into it. So as seen in this image, this is the NCBTS structure. This is just the simplified version of it. So as here, there are seven domains. These are the seven domains listed in the NCBTS. So, first domain would be social regard for learning. Second domain would be the learning environment. Third, the diversity of learners. Fourth, the curriculum. Fifth, planning and assessing. Sixth, community linkage. And seventh, personal and professional growth. So, as seen here, domain 1 and domain 7 is labeled as the teacher as a learner, right? While domain 2 to domain 6 is labeled as the teacher as a facilitator of learning. So that will be explained later, okay? So let's get right into the first domain. The first domain is social regard for learning. So if you read this, let's read this. Okay. The SRFL domain focuses on the ideal that teachers serve as a positive and powerful role models of the value in the pursuit of different efforts to learn. The teacher's action statements and different types of social interactions with students exemplify this ideal. So, in simpler terms, you as a teacher have a very positive and powerful effect on these students. Let's remove the positive because that's how you should be, okay? But you can also have negative effects if you are not aware of your own actions. Remember, the eyes of the students are always looking at you. So you must always be aware of your actions, of your behavior, and of your appearance. So the first trend would be acts as a positive role model for students. Uh, the indications would be implements school policies and procedures. So this basically, if you want your students to be law-abiding citizens, you should be able to implement school policies and procedures. You should be able to not just implement them, but also follow them. Okay. So the next one would be demonstrates punctuality. So punctuality just means be timely. So, as a teacher, you should also show that you are able to submit, let's say, reports or anything like that, or lesson plans in time, because this would exemplify to students that they should also always be on time, right? Na- hindi dapat tayo yung magiging sakit ng ulo ng mga ating mga supervisors. So, next one would be maintains appropriate appearance maintains appropriate appearance. Okay, that's the first one. So maintains appropriate appearance does just not mean physical, all right? But let's get that one first. So as a teacher, you can't just go into school dressing like a teenager, right? You are a teacher. You are exemplifying professionalism. So you should always wear your uniforms in their scheduled days, right? So this just not mean your uniform, but also your look, how well you're groomed, how well you're dressed, your posture, everything. Okay, you should be the role model of professionalism. Okay, and the next one is careful about the effects of one's behavior on students. This is what I'm talking about. That is also, you should not only care about your appearance in the physical, but also in social, because behavior is a social appearance. You should show that uh, your behavior is very professional. How do you have a professional behavior then? So just by having your posture correct, the way you speak, the way you reply to others, the way you conduct your classes, all of your actions should be professional because you are a role model for students. All right, you are a very powerful role model. So the next one would be learning environment. So uh, let's read it. Let's read it. Okay. This domain focuses on importance and providing a social, psychological, and physical environment with which all students, regardless of their individual differences in learning, can engage in the different learning activities and work toward attaining high standards of learning. So this just means that like learning environment isn't just a facility. It's not just physical. It's also a psychological and social environment. Remember, when the students are comfortable and right, they're comfortable, right? That is where the learning begins. When they're comfortable and when they feel like they want to learn, that is when they learn, right? So, first strand, the teacher creates an environment that promotes fairness and in its indications, maintains a learning environment of courtesy and respects for different learners' abilities, culture, and gender. So, simple terms, right? You are supposed to maintain a learning environment that has respect for your learners' difference, right? Not every learner has the same ability. Not everyone is a fast learner, right? Others are also slow learners, but you do not discriminate that. You respect that. Others have different cultures. Let's say others are from another town that just went to this school because, let's say, of a disaster, right? You are supposed to respect them and their gender and even their own beliefs, all right? So you are not supposed to assume that everyone is the same because you should respect their differences because everyone is different no matter what, okay? So the next one would be provides gender fair opportunities for learning. So in simpler terms, right? As a teacher, you should not be biased. Yes, everyone has their biases. Yes, everyone has their opinions, but not in the classroom. You are a teacher. You are a role model. Remember, you're a role model. You're a role model for gender equality in denying racism, right? You are supposed to see everyone as an equal, but you do not look to them as if they're the same. You respect their difference, but at the same time, even though they're different, they're supposed to be equal, right? So here provides gender fair opportunities. Obviously, you do not look in someone's gender in providing opportunities for them. Their gender does not matter when it comes to providing opportunities. Whether they are male, whether they are female, whether they are a homosexual, it does not matter. You provide that equal opportunities for those students. All right. So next one, recognizes that every learner has strengths. So basically, this means that every learner has their own strengths. They are not the same. Maybe others are greater in visual learning, while others are greater in audio learning. So you are supposed to know that, and you are supposed to accommodate that strength to your way of teaching. All right. Next one will be the teacher makes the classroom environment safe and conductive to learning. Okay, so the first indication here would be maintains a safe, clean, and orderly classroom free from distractions. So basically, as a teacher, you're supposed to be the one to maintain an organized classroom. This just not means that the chairs are organized, the blackboard is clean, there are no trashes. This also means that you are supposed to be able to organize your students, where they if you're speaking, you should be able to silence them, but not like silence that you are literally being a terror. No, you're able to silence them that they are also interested in learning. So, and also you are supposed to maintain a this is both physical and psychological. So you're supposed to maintain a clean classroom, no trash, and a organized one. Let's say the chairs are organized, the blackboard is clean, the chalk and the eraser are in place. But at the same time, in psychologically, when it comes to organized, it should also be the students. You are organized yourself, but also the students should organize themselves as well. So the next one would be arranges challenging activities given the physical environment. So this would just mean that students doesn't only learn from easy tasks. You're supposed to be able to challenge them. You're supposed to be able to give them difficult activities for them to develop their higher learning. Okay. So the next strand would be the teacher communicates higher learning expectations to each learner. So the indications in this one would be uses individual and cooperative learning activities to improve capacities of learner for higher learning. So this would just mean that you are able to use both individual and cooperative. So let's say you are creating an activity for a student. Uh, Seat work is one. Seat work is an example of an individual, but at the same time, it can also be cooperative. If that's seat work, let's say it was a group quiz, that's cooperative. Both individual and both cooperative activities have their own positive effect on the student. First of all, in individual, they are able to become independent. But in cooperating, they're able to learn to cooperate with others. It can even maybe develop a sense of leadership, right, or a sense of listening to others as a member, right. It can develop. It can both develop the students in different ways. So the next one would be encourages learners to ask questions. As a teacher, you should be easy to approach, right? Your students shouldn't be scared with you. So, and if students are able to ask questions freely, they are able to clear up their difficulties. Let's say they have difficulties in a certain question they do not understand. As a teacher, you're supposed to clear that up. Remember, you are trying to make an effective teaching, right? And effective teaching, it requires all the students to be able to learn. So if they have any parts that they are confused with, you're supposed to clear that up, because even though uh, they are all different, you're supposed to be able to teach all of your students. All right. So no one gets are supposed to get left behind. So the next one would be provides learners with variety of learning experiences. So this just means that as a teacher, you're supposed to be able to provide the learners with many different learning experiences. It could be let's say just a listening one, maybe a seat work, or maybe even an uh, activity that you're supposed to do. Let's say in programming, sometimes I am to teach a student in a way that I'm only explaining, only using PowerPoint and all of that. But I can also use that they can have a physical, let's say PC or laptop, and they can able to program while I'm teaching them in programming. So that is many. You can use many different types of learning experiences for your students. All right. So the next one would be the teacher establishes and maintain consistent standards of learners behavior. So the indicators of this would be handles behavior problems quickly with due respect to children's rights. This just means that you are able to handle. Let's say a student have a problem when it comes to listening, right? They don't listen. They're trying to like hurt others. Uh, You are as a teacher, as a facilitator, remember that, as a facilitator of learning, you should be able to deal with that quickly, but at the same time you're supposed to respect that child's rights. You cannot hurt the child physically, mentally, verbally, anything. You're supposed to respect that. You should be able to deal with it without hurting that student. Okay, so the next one would be gives timely feedback to reinforce appropriate learners behavior. Okay, so basically this just means, let's say your student is able to do a good work. You reinforcing compliment or anything like that for them boosts their confidence and boosts their comfortability and your environment, right? And this would also probably develop. It could possibly develop a sense of interest in learning because they're being complimented by their own teachers. So the next one would be the third domain, which is diversity of learners. The DOL domain emphasizes the ideal that teachers can facilitate the learning process even with diverse learners. By recognizing and respecting individual differences and by using knowledge about their differences to design diverse sets of learning activities to ensure that all learners can attain desired goals. Remember when I said about the earlier about in the learning environment that all students have differences. Basically, this domain is focusing on that in your students have their own differences. So the first strand would be the teacher is familiar with learners' background knowledge and experience. So, in the indicators, it says uses information on the learning styles and needs of the learners to design and select learning experiences. So, basically, you are going to use the information that you have on your students. Let's say uh, they are more into the learning style of learning by doing, right? Then you are going to accommodate that their learning styles. You're going to use that. You're going to use that information to make a, let's say, a lesson plan. You're planning a lesson. You are going to accommodate their learning style. You're not going to just randomly make a lesson without accommodating their learning style. All right, you are supposed to use that information to facilitate an effective learning. So the next one would be establishes goals that define appropriate expectations for all learners. So this just means you're establishing a goal that can be reached by your students. Let's say there's only one. There's not only there's a very smart a genius in your class, and you have a very high expectation of that student, but that expectation is also being passed to your other students, right? And you're setting a goal for this for that one student, and that goal is also being shared to others, right? You are not supposed to do that. You're supposed to set a goal for everyone that is appropriate to them, right? You are not uh, going to set a goal that they cannot reach. So next indicators would be paces lesson appropriate to needs and or abilities of learners. So this just means that, let's say your students are slow learners, you're supposed to pace that according to their speed. You're not going to pace that randomly or with how how you are paced. You're according your pace to your students. Remember, we are trying to teach the students, not you. Okay. So the next one would be provides differentiated activities for learners. So maybe you would wonder, like, what would be the benefit of it, having a differentiated activities? Remember, all of your students are different. There are diversity. They have different types of learning. So you can have activities, for example, by learning by doing. You can have activities that are more into academically, right? More into writing. So you are supposed to use these different activities for you to accommodate all of your students, right? And the next one would be initiates other learning approaches initiates other learning approaches for learners whose needs have not been met by usual approaches. So basically, you are going to use different learning approaches. Let's say others are having difficulty because they are more into visual presentation. Let's say whenever you have classes, you're not using PowerPoint, you're just explaining, but others are not able to pace, they're not in the same pace as you, right? So you are supposed to use other approaches, so you should accommodate that. Let's say uh, next time you make your lesson, use a PowerPoint for those visual learners, and you are able to accommodate for them, so all of your students should be able to learn. All right. The next one is shows sensitivity to multicultural background of the learner. So this just basically means you're able to show sensitivities, show a understanding, show a welcoming of others' culture, because as we have said, every students have different cultures, and your culture may be different to your student, and you should be able to respect that. You should be able to show them that it is okay. It is an okay environment for you to show your own culture, right? The next strand would be the teacher demonstrates concern for holistic development of learners. So, the indications of this is sets clear, challenging, and achievable expectation on the holistic development of all learners. So, as earlier, right, I said about the goals, right? So, you should have it is the same here. You should have able to have a clear yet challenging, but even though it is challenging, it is difficult, it is also achievable for your students as challenges develop even better learning. So you should set a better uh, you should be able to set a challenging yet achievable expectation for all of your students, not just one, not just most, not just few, but all of them, right? So next would be identifies learning gaps and takes action to enable learners to catch up. So basically you should be able to see when others are having difficulty in your lessons, right? You should be able to know when they are having learning gaps. Let's say you are teaching in a class and some of the students are not being able to learn, and this happens multiple times. You should be able to identify it, and you should be able to solve this problem, solve these learning gaps for them to be able to learn. So next one would be employs an interactive and employs an integrative and interactive strategies for meaningful and holistic development for of learners. So this just means that you are able to employ different strategies such as integrative and interactive. You know, so and the next one is sensitive to unusual behavior of learners and takes appropriate action. So this just means that you are able to understand whenever students, right, are having unusual behavior. Let's say this student is particularly sensitive to a song that you have played. You should be able to basically accommodate that, right? So any unusual behavior, you should not ignore it. You should be able to solve that, right? Because you're trying to make your classroom comfortable for every student that you have. All right, so the next one would be provides opportunities to enhance learners growth in all aspects. So basically, as a teacher, you should be able to provide opportunities for your students to be able to enhance their learning, right? In all aspects, not just in academic, let's say not just academically, but also in their mental thing, in their mentally, socially. You should be able to give opportunities for them to improve all of their learning aspects, right? So we are now in domain 4, curriculum. So the curriculum domain refers to all elements of the teaching learning process that work in the convergence to help students understand the curricular goals and objectives and to attain high standards of learning defined in the curriculum. These elements include the teacher's knowledge of subject matter and the learning process, teaching learning approaches and activities, instructional materials, and learning resources. So, the first strand would be the teacher mastery of subject. delivers accurate and updated current knowledge using appropriate methodologies, approaches, and strategies. So basically, let's say you are discussing a certain lesson, you should be able to have a knowledge. Obviously, you should be able to have knowledge in what you're teaching, and at the same time, it should not be outdated, right? And you should be able to appropriately apply the appropriate methodologies, the appropriate strategies in teaching this lesson. The next one would be integrates language, literacy, and quantitative skill development and values in his her subject. Basically, you are supposed to show language, literacy, and quantitative. So obviously language is our language, right? Let's say in Filipino, I'm teaching Filipino, I should be able to show a skill in that language. I about How about literacy? Literacy is more about being able to read and write. As a teacher, you aren't supposed to show professionalism. How are you gonna look at a teacher who can't read and write and tell that they're professional? So you should be able to give to have this skill. The next one would become quantitative. So basically, this is you should be able to have these many skills in your subject, right? Subject area. Next one would be explain learning goals, instructional procedures, and content clearly, accurately to learners. So explain learning goals. Remember when I explained our learning objectives earlier. So this is kind of like the same to that. Instructional procedures. So basically, this is the procedure. Let's say I am having a icebreaker. I should be able to explain the procedure of that, the procedure for that icebreaker clearly, right? And next would be content clearly. So I am supposed to be able to teach my lesson to you clearly, the content of my lesson to you, right? The next one would be links the current content with the past and future lessons. So basically, let's say our past lesson was about what NCBTS was. Remember, it's a framework, right? It can be used as a self-assessment tool for teachers, and then the future lessons would be, as for from my review, would be PPST, right? So you're supposed to be able to link your current lesson to your past or previous to your future lesson, right? And next would be aligns lessons objectives with the teaching methods, learning activities, and instructional materials or resource appropriate to learners. So you cannot have learning objectives that are not aligned to your lesson. Let's say I have a learning objectives. Students are supposed to identify uh, what the uh, what the Philippine history is, but my lesson is about national competency-based teacher standards, right? It's not aligned. You should be able to align all of this to further create an effective learning or teaching strategy, right? And next would be create situations that encourage learners to use high order thinking skills. So you can use questions that they are supposed to think even higher. They're supposed to think even what could have happened, what could be the right answer to this, and those types of answers always require a high order thinking questions, right? So you should be able to come up with these questions or even with these activities for you to be able to develop their higher order thinking skills. So the next one would be engages and sustains learners' interest in the subject by making content meaningful and relevant to them. So basically, as you have heard from me right earlier, uh, the moment the student is comfortable and is interested to your lesson is when they start learning, right? So here it says that you should be able to engage that interest and able to sustain that interest in the subject that you're teaching, and make your content meaningful and relevant to them, right? Let's say that they are students of IT, but you were teaching culture and arts to them, right? Somehow, obviously, somehow this has somehow a relevance to them, but not really that relevant to their profession in the future, right? So you should always consider that. So the next one would be integrates relevant scholarly works and ideas to enrich the lesson as needed. So you should be able to enter irrelevant scholarly works. Let's say a thesis, right? So you are supposed to be able to integrate a works or ideas, right, to enrich that lesson that you are teaching. So the next one would be the next strand would be the teacher communications, clear learning goals for the lessons that are appropriate for learners. So here it says sets appropriate learning goals, makes the learner understand the learning goals. So basically here it just says, as I have said earlier, again, you should be able to set an appropriate learning goal for them, but at the same time, here, in addition to this, makes the learner understand the learning goals, right? So you are not just supposed to give them a learning goal, but also you are supposed to give them a learning goal that they understand, so they are able to even do it more efficiently. The next one would be link the goals set with the expectations for every learner. So you should always consider, yeah, the learner that you're setting the expectations for. You should It should be aligned with their abilities and their knowledge and their skills, right? So the next one would be another next strand. The teacher makes good use of allotted instructional time, establishes routines and procedures to maximize instructional time. So basically, this just means that you are able to establish that routines, right? You're able to, by routine is like what you usually do in a repetitive way. Let's say you have a morning routine. You wake up, you eat your breakfast, you shower, and you dress and you go to school. That is your routine. So even in teaching, there is also a routine, but as says here, you are also supposed to be able to maximize your instructional time. A teacher is not effective if they are not maximizing their instructional time. Let's say they are always extending their instructional time. You should not do that, all right? So the next one would be plans lesson to fit within the available instructional time. So your lesson plan should always be out should always be able to be exactly getting in that instructional in that lesson, right? Your lesson should be able to always fit in that instructional time. You're supposed to not extend. You should be able to maximize that learning for your students. So the next one would be domain 5, planning, assessing, reporting. Okay, this domain refers to the alignment of assessment and planning activities. In particular, the PAR focuses on one, use of assessment data to plan and revise teaching learning plans. Two, integration of assessment procedures in the plan and implementation of teaching learning activities. And three, reporting of the learner's actual achievement and behavior. So the first strand here is the teacher communicates promptly and clearly the learner's progress to parents, supervisors, superiors, and to learners themselves. So, in the indicators, conducts regular meetings with learners and parents to report learners' progress. So basically, here, as said, it is a planning, assessing, and reporting. So you should be able to conduct regular meetings with their parents to be able to report them that learner's progress. Because at the same time, let's say you're the student, the students, uh, the students' academic grades are deteriorating, right? Deteriorating. Uh, by reporting that to the parent, they may be able to help that, and and with that, you are able to establish an effective learning environment, right? So you should conduct a regular meeting for the students' progress, whether it would be a deterioration of the grade or even uh, a great progress, a positive progress of their grade, right? And this not just be grade but also their behavior in the school, right? So the next one would be involves parents in school activities that promote learning. So you should be able to involve the parents uh, in the school activities, because at the same time it just does not, it's not just promoting learning, but also it's promoting the relationship between the learner and their parents, right? So the next strand would be the teacher develops and uses a variety of appropriate assessment strategies to monitor and evaluate learning. So the indicator of this would be prepares formative and summative tests. So basically, you are just able to prepare a summative and formative test. This is a very, very basic and technical skill for a teacher. You should be able to have this technical skill in order to become an effective teacher. So the next one would be employs non-traditional assessment techniques. So by traditional, this would mean like a technique that is regularly used, right? So it just does not mean that you are not going to employ traditional, but it should be you are able to employ traditional and non-traditional techniques for you to be able to uh, facilitate effective learning more, right? So next would be interprets and uses assessment result to improve teaching and learning. So here you are supposed to, let's say you have an assessment and you are seeing that your students are having lower grades. So you should be able to interpret this and use this result to improve your teaching and the learning of the students, right? So it means that if the grades are getting low, it could be the learner or it could be the teacher that's having wrong action. But at the same time, it could also be applied when the students are getting higher grades. You should be able to interpret. Oh, okay. So you should be able to interpret that. Okay, they're getting higher grades probably because of this action that I'm doing, right? So you should be able to interpret that assessment, because that assessment is a very, very good way to promote an improvement for you and for the student as well. And next would be uh, provides timely and accurate feedback to learners to encourage them and to reflect on and monitor their own learning growth. So basically, you should be able to provide a timely and accurate feedback. Let's say your students having great grades, you should be able to consistently provide feedback for them. Hey, you're doing good. You're doing this. You're doing that. That promotes. That makes you a better learner. A better be able to promote learning for the entire classroom. You should be able to do that feedback to them. Or when they're having a low grade, you should be able to feedback to them like, oh, this is what you are doing wrong. You should be able to improve on this in order for you to have a more effective learning, right? You should be able to provide that feedback, because that feedback may also help not just you but also your students, right? And the next one would be keeps accurate records, right? Keeps accurate records of grades with performance levels of learners. So by keeping these accurate records of grades, you are able to see, you are able to assess whether the students are improving or not, right? And this is very important when it comes to assessment, when it comes to the improvement for the learners and even for your teaching, right? So the next one would be the domain six. Domain six, community linkage. The CL domain refers to the ideal that classroom activities are meaningful, linked to the experience and aspirations of the learners in their homes and communities. Thus, this domain focuses on the teacher's efforts directed on strengthening the links between the school and communities to help in the attainment of the curricular goals. So, first strand, the teacher establishes learning environments that respond to the aspiration of the community. So its indications would be involves community in sharing accountability for the learner's achievements. So basically, by sharing this the learner's achievements, you're not just boosting your learners improvement, but also like you are making other people interested in studying, right? Interested in trying trying to get into school even more, right? So you are not just helping the school, but also you're helping your community when it comes to knowledge or education. The next one would be use community human and material resources to support learning. So you should be able to use the community. Let's say when it remember when what do you call it? Brigada, right? uh, Whenever there's brigada, you are using human as a teacher. Well, you are not. It's not just you. It's also the whole Department of Education. Uh, we are using the human power, which could be the parents, human power, and the material uh, of the community to even have a better resource for your students. Let's say there's a broken chair. You're using that human power, the people who are volunteering to fix those chairs, right? So basically, you are not just the community is also helping the school. All right. So you should be able to use it in both ways. You're supposed to be able to help the community by using the school, but you should be able to also use the community to help the school. It's both ways. It's vice versa. So the next one would be use the community as a laboratory for learning. So remember when uh, in a first year of college, right? uh, Most of the there is let's say you're CWTS student, right? You are required to make a what do you call that? A the way a You're supposed to be able to plan something that helps the community. So here, use the community as a laboratory for learning. At the same time, you are using you are making them help the community, but at the same time, by doing that, you are using the community as a laboratory for your students to learn, right? So the next one would be participates in community activities that promote learning. So that could also be at the same time in CWTS. That could also be a participation in community activities that could also promote learning. Example, you are a uh, college of teacher education student, right? So by conducting teaching children, you are also able to promote learning in your certain profession. So the next one would be uses community networks to publicize school events and achievements, right? So here you are using the community's networks, let's say the barangays, and they publicize the school's events and achievements. Let's say the school event has an event that helps the elderly, right? They're using the school as a laboratory for as an environment for free checkup. So basically, here you should be able to use the community network. You could also use the community network for the achievements of your school to even furtherly boost the interest of the public in education. So the last one, last domain. Let's go. So the last domain is personal growth and professional development, PGPD. So the PGPD domain emphasizes the ideal that that teachers value having a high personal regard for teaching profession, concern for professional development, and continuous improvement for teachers. So first strand here would be the teacher takes pride in the ability of teaching as a profession. So the first indication here would be maintained stature and behavior that uphold the dignity of teaching. So here, you should be able to maintain the behavior that upholds, right? That stands the dignity of teaching. You should be able to show that this is teaching, this is my profession, that this is how I help the community. You should be able to stand on that stature, right? The next one would be allocates time for personal and professional development through. So this could mean that you should be able to allocate that time not just for your students to learn, but also you should be able to allocate your time to even furtherly boost yourself to be a more effective teacher, right? To be able to uh, improve yourself professionally as a teacher, right? This is through A. Participation in educational seminar and workshops. B. Enrollment in short term courses and postgraduate programs. And C. Reading regular educational materials regularly. And last, engaging in educational research. So, First of all, let's explain the participation in educational seminar and workshops. So, in the participation in educational seminar and workshops, uh, there's those higher ranked teachers can help you. They can tell they can help you when it comes to teaching. They can tell many different philosophical techniques when it comes to teaching, many different styles when it comes to teaching, and this can help you in when it comes to teaching your students, and it can also help you professionally as a teacher. Next one would be enrollment in short-term courses in postgraduate programs. This can even furtherly boost your knowledge in your field of profession, in your subject profession, right? This can even furtherly boost your skills and knowledge in that area. So the next one would be reading regular educational materials regularly. So by reading these educational materials, you are able to have a wider knowledge in what you are in the area that you are teaching, right? And the next one would be engaging in educational research. When it comes to engaging in educational research, you're able to research in something and able to find out a new information through that, and that just not boosts the educational information of that community, but also you're able to boost your own skills when it comes to research in education, right? So the next one would be manifests personal qualities such as enthusiasm, flexibility, caring, and articulates and demonstrates one's personal philosophy of teaching. So, in manifesting personal qualities such as enthusiasm, flexibility, and caring, first of all, enthusiasm is meaning that a teacher is, let's say, funny, is happy. In being funny and happy, you're able to create a positive environment and a comfortable environment for your students, right? And by being flexible, let's say by being flexible, there is no electricity, you are partaking, you are in the middle of your discussion, then a electricity comes out. You should be able to be flexible, that you are able to accommodate this challenge. And in caring, as a teacher, you are not just facilitating learning but also facilitating the development of your students in many different aspects. And by caring for them, they are also being able to improve in social, not just academically, right? So in caring, it helps the students in many different aspects, and articulates and demonstrates one's personal philosophy of teaching. In this one, you're able to create your own personal philosophy of teaching. Example, my own philosophy of teaching would be students learn, and when it comes to challenge, that is my own personal philosophy. When developing a personal philosophy of teaching, you are able to reinforce that to your teaching, right? And the next trend would be the teacher reflects on the extent of the attainment of the student's learning goals. So, says here, reflects on the quality of his her own teaching. So basically here you should be able to reflect whether your teaching strategy is effective or not. Because if you are not able to reflect, you will not be able to improve yourself as a teacher. You are not being able to uh, maintain an effective teaching environment, right? The next one would be receives favorable rating from students, peers, and superiors. So through this, you do not just receive this favorable rating, you are able to basically achieve them. You achieve them through being enthusiastic, flexible, and caring, right? So by having this favorable rating from students, peers, and superiors, that just means that you as a teacher is great, whether it's from uh, maintaining or creating an environment that is comfortable and a positive environment for your students. But this could also mean that you are also able to teach your subject area in a great way, in a professional way, right? In an effective way. So the next one would be accepts personal accountability for learners' achievement, right? You should be able to accept the personal accountability. You're supposed to be able to account to your learner's achievement, right? Because you are the one that develops that. And the next would be uses self-evaluation to recognize and correct weakness, right? So self-evaluation does not just only recognize your greatness, but also your weakness. By recognizing this weakness, you're able to correct them, and by correcting them, you are able to reinforce an even more effective learning environment. And that's all for today, guys. Thank you for listening. This is Sir Jericho Ayap, and I thank you for listening in this lesson. So that's all for today, and I'll be seeing you in the next lessons. Thank you very much.